Billionaire discovers his EX-MAID sleeping at airport. What happens next will shock you forever. A mind-blowing incident unfolded in the dimly lit terminal of a bustling airport. There, nestled among the chaos of hurrying travelers, was a scene that left everyone gaping. A billionaire, known for his luxurious lifestyle and cutthroat business deals, stumbled upon a sight that could shake anyone to their core: his ex-maid, lying on a bench, her face pale and sunken, as if drained of life itself. As he looked closer, the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. This was no ordinary moment. She had once been a silent witness to the riches and opulence of his world, but now wore ragged clothes, worn down by hardship. Her eyes were squeezed shut, glistening with the residue of countless sleepless nights. The people around hardly noticed, lost in their own bubbles of impatience and anxiety, while the air was thick with an unsaid question: how did it come to this? Just moments earlier, the terminal was alive with laughter and hustle, but now it felt like time held its breath. A stray thought pierced the billionaire's mind: was this some kind of cosmic joke? The woman who had scrubbed his mansion floors, who had set the table for his extravagant parties, was now reduced to this. Others stared, whispers flitted like shadows. Is that really her? They gasped. Their eyes darted from the billionaire to the woman, searching for answers. The tension thickened, a palpable silence swept through the crowd. What secrets lay behind her closed eyes? As he hovered, uncertainty coursed through him like ice water. He looked around, expecting someone to intervene, yet everyone remained fixated, staring with a mix of shock and curiosity. It was as if fate had placed him in a theater of the surreal, where the past converged with the present in a haunting way. His heart raced. Should he approach her? What if she stirred and saw him? Would she recognize the man who had once commanded her life with a flick of his wrist? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With each passing second, the uncertainty clawed at him, gnawing away at the comfort of his opulent surroundings. She was now a phantom of a life that seemed long gone. The thought of her struggling drew forth an unexpected pang of guilt. Should he wake her? Would she recoil like an animal backed into a corner? His chest tightened. He dared not disturb the fragile silence. What if this wasn't just a reunion, but a reckoning? What had driven her to this desolate state? He had questions burning inside him, and yet, as the minutes ticked by, the haunting stillness loomed larger than his uncertainty. The terminal felt like a prism, reflecting the vast divide between their worlds, and then, as if on cue, the woman stirred, her eyelids fluttering open slowly. The moment felt electric, a jolt of anticipation rippling through the crowd, waiting, hoping, fearing. What would happen next was anyone's guess. He watched as her eyes cracked open, squinting against the harsh fluorescent lights of the terminal. The moment seemed suspended in time, the roar of the crowd fading into a distant echo. Recognition dawned slowly on her face, as if she were sifting through layers of half-remembered smiles and laughter. When she finally met his gaze, it was a collision of worlds, hers tarnished and raw, his polished and gleaming. Surprise quickly transformed into something else, something more complicated. Her eyes widened, betraying a mix of shock, confusion, and a flicker of anger. The whispers around them grew louder, a chorus of judgment and disbelief. What are you doing here? She croaked, her voice barely above a whisper, but it cut through the air like a knife. I was just passing through, he stammered, realizing how weak his excuse sounded. The billionaire stepped closer, careful to maintain a safe distance. Part of him wanted to reach out, to pull her from the darkness that seemed to envelop her, but another part held back, tethered by memories that felt like lead weights pulling down his conscience. Just passing through? She choked out a derisive laugh, a bitter edge slicing through her tone. This is where I end up, after slaving away for you? While you live in your castle? There was fire in her voice now, anger igniting the impossibly fragile shell of herself she had built up over the years. Around them, people craned their necks, trying to catch bits of the unfolding drama. A woman in a business suit leaned forward, straining to isolate the heated exchange. I didn't know, he began, but the words felt hollow against the weight of her suffering. The gulf between them now felt insurmountable. I can't believe you, she said, shaking her head. You thought you could just forget me? Like I was nothing? Her voice cracked, the fierce shield she tried to hold up softened by the tremor of vulnerability beneath. She surged forward, fumbling to sit up, anger and despair intertwining on her face. His heart twisted. He had built his life on wealth and power, but here, standing before him, was a reminder of his past choices and their consequences. What happened to you? He asked, the question spilling from his lips unbidden, the longing for truth echoing in his heart. It was a question that felt monumental. The muscles in her jaw tightened, and a wariness washed over her features. You really want to know? She challenged, eyes narrowing, the fight not gone from her spirit. Yes, he replied, the word firmer now. He stepped closer, breaking the invisible barrier of distance. Just then, chaos erupted. A loud crash came from behind them, the rolling sound of luggage scattering and voices raised in panic. Gasps filled the terminal as travelers fled, startled by the disruption. Run! Shouted a man, pointing towards the entrance. The air thickened with tension, anticipation coiling tightly around them. What's happening? She shrieked, panic creeping into her voice. The billionaire felt a jolt of dread. In this moment, all seemed lost as past, her past, and any possibility of resolving the storm that churned between them. Their reunion now threatened to slip into chaos, and just as he was about to answer her, something caught his eye in the distance, a shadowy figure lurking in the corner, watching them. The realization struck a presence that felt ominous and familiar. What the hell? He murmured, his thoughts racing. But before he could take another step, the figure vanished, lost among the sea of confusion. The question hung heavy in the air. What did this mean for their lives intertwined in such uncertain and unsettling ways? He held her gaze, knowing that answers still lingered unanswered as the chaos unfolded around them. In the frenzy, the threads of their fates twisted tighter together than ever before. Chaos enveloped them like a thick fog. The sounds of panic reverberated through the terminal, drowning out everything else. Her face, once animated with anger, now turned pale, reflecting pure terror. She clutched the edge of the gurney as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded, while he felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. Stay close, he urged, instinctively reaching for her hand. The moment their fingers touched, electricity sparked between them, a jolt that cut through the fear spawning around them. But the grip of reality was far stronger. Do you see that? She gasped, her voice a blend of disbelief and horror. He followed her gaze, spotting the shadow again, lurking amongst the fleeing passengers. A tall figure, shrouded in a black hoodie, blended into the chaos but seemed focused on them. Who is that? She whispered, fear lacing her timbre. I don't know, he replied, though his heart raced as recognition gnawed at him. The figure seemed to evaporate each time he thought he could make out more detail. Listen, we have to find a way out of here. We can't just stay in this chaos. She began to pull herself up, the frailness in her movement stark against the backdrop of their escalating panic. He shifted closer, his protective instincts kicking in. No, you need to stay put. I'll find a way. He let go of her hand, feeling the heat of her anger radiate back even as worry clouded his own mind. Don't you dare treat me like I'm helpless. She shot back, rising to her feet, though her legs wobbled. Around them, people screamed. Someone threw a suitcase across the terminal, narrowly missing a group of children. The figure in the corner reappeared, lurking, watching, waiting. Panic bubbled deep inside him. We can't think straight. We need to move, now. Then let us go. She snapped, taking a determined step forward. But she halted, the wildness of her gaze locking into his, igniting something more within him. A tangled past, now entwined with immediacy, echoed loudly in their demands for attention. Before he could respond, the shadow began to advance, and adrenaline coursed through his veins. It was time to act. Follow me, he commanded, grabbing her wrist and pulling her toward the nearest exit. They weaved their way through bodies desperately trying to escape. Among the chaos, the shadows seemed to dart between the fleeing passengers, never losing them. What do they want? She cried, her voice barely audible over the storm of commotion. I think they're after us, he said through gritted teeth, desperation drenching each word. But I swear I don't know who or why. Now, he felt the weight of guilt just as much as panic. This reunion, this moment of confrontation over their shared past, had spiraled into a nightmare. Left. That way. She pointed frantically toward an emergency exit, her survival instinct stronger than the whirlwind of emotions and confusion. As they rushed to the door, a scream pierced through the air, freezing him in his tracks. He spun around, facing the chaos. The figure had shifted, slicing through the crowd with a commanding presence. The eyes hidden beneath the hood glinted with malice, locking onto them. They're coming. She shouted, dragging him forward. They burst through the emergency door, the cool, outside air breaking over them like a wave, but the tension didn't dissipate. Where do we go now? Taken aback by the sudden shift in their surroundings, he knew they needed a plan. Anywhere but here. She pulled him along, her spirit igniting his resolve. But in the corner of his mind, a dark suspicion hung heavy. Was their past following them in the form of this stranger? The air shifted, as if the world conspired against them, coiling tightly around this second chance. What happens now? He asked, desperation tightening his grip on her. No idea, she said breathlessly, but they both knew that whatever lay ahead would force them to confront more than just the shadows. As they ran, a sense of urgency swallowed them, but a chilling realization glimmered on the horizon. This was just the beginning. But just then, a chilling question slipped out. What if this is all connected? Our past, this figure, everything? The answer loomed like a dark cloud, threatening to unleash its storm at any moment. The asphalt outside felt cold underfoot, contradicting the adrenaline that pulsed through his body. They sprinted into the night, their heartbeats syncing with their frantic breaths, leaving the chaos of the airport behind. But the darkness outside offered little solace, only a deepening sense of dread. Why are they targeting us? She gasped, her voice trembling as she turned to look at him, panic growing in her eyes. I wish I knew, he replied, knowing that every second counted. They rounded a corner and found a small, dimly lit parking lot. Empty. Desolate. The stillness was unsettling. We can't hide here, she urged, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Let us just think for a second. He felt the weight of the moment gust around them like the wind, heavy with unsaid words. They needed to catch their breath, but terror was tightening its grip. Do you remember anything from before? Anything that could help? Her eyes narrowed, wrestling with the chaos in her mind. Just fragments, and the way it felt when I realized what? He pressed, but pressuring her felt wrong, selfish in this moment of calamity. She shook her head, tossing her hair back. We were just kids then. Something changed. Somebody had to make a move. This wasn't random. His voice was urgent, raw. Were they being haunted by the choices made in their past? Before she could reply, a dark silhouette appeared at the edge of the lot, forming from the shadows as though conjured. The figure was closer now, more threatening. A low laugh hummed in the night. You think you can escape? It called out, voice smooth but dangerous, cutting through the air like glass. His stomach dropped. A laughter he recognized, too familiar. What do you want? He shouted, annoyance mingling with fear. The figure stepped into the cold light of a flickering street lamp, revealing a face marked with a malicious grin. It was someone he hadn't thought of in years, an old rival. "Oh, I think you know exactly what I want. Your precious past is my playground now." She squeezed his arm, her breath coming in quick bursts. "Who is that?" "It doesn't matter," he snapped, pulling her closer as the figure chuckled. "They're not playing games." "Don't be so sure," the rival replied, twisting the knife of doubt. "You think this is just personal? This is bigger than both of us. Your life, your choices, everything is about to unravel." His mind raced, trying to make sense of the twisted web. "If it's bigger, then why target us here? Now?" "Because," the rival leaned closer, eyes glinting with malice, "you two are the keys to my success. It all revolves around that night." "What night?" She could barely choke out the words, but the rival only smiled, lips curling in triumph. "You don't remember, do you? The secret you both buried deep has resurfaced, and I'm here to collect." A rush of anger surged within him, pushing back fear. "No. You think you can control this? You don't know us." "Ah, but I do. Better than you could ever imagine." With that, the figure straightened, shadows sliding away like a cloak. "And soon, you'll discover the lengths I am willing to go to settle old scores." He felt her tension, the horror flooding her expression. "What do we do?" she whispered, almost pleading. "Run," he urged, but the words were barely out of his mouth before the rival snapped his fingers. From the corners of the lot, figures began emerging. They were cloaked, faceless shadows converging on them. "Now, let us see just how far you'll go." The rival stepped back, allowing his minions to envelop them. A chill shot through him, ice-cold and petrifying. Heart racing, he turned to her, desperation raw in his voice. "We can't let this end here." But as the shadows closed in, darkness threatened to consume them completely. What had they unleashed, and what would they have to sacrifice to escape? The cold grip of shadows closed in, swirling around them like a thick fog. Panic surged in his chest. "We need to make a break for it." He jerked his head toward the darkness beyond the parking lot. "Where?" she gasped, her eyes wide with terror, darting left and right for any possible escape. Before he could answer, a hand shot out from the nearest shadow, wrapping around his ankle, yanking him down. He stumbled, his leg crumpling beneath him. "No!" he cried, struggling to regain his footing while he clawed at the ground. "Let him go!" she screamed, her voice piercing the night, but the shadows tightened their grip. They were everywhere now, whispering threats and sinister laughter that echoed in the cold air. He reached for her, stretching his fingers as she darted closer, but an unseen force shoved her back, and a flash of pain crossed her face. She fought harder, trying to break free, but these figures had an iron grip. "Stay away from her!" he roared, finally managing to pull free. He lunged toward her, adrenaline flooding his system as he grasped her arm. "Run!" he shouted again, this time with wild determination. She nodded, eyes blazing with defiance, and they bolted toward the edge of the lot, but the cloaked figures surged forward, a tidal wave of menace. The darkness seemed alive, closing off every avenue of escape in a swift, suffocating embrace. As they neared a car parked at the edge, he spotted something shiny glinting under the dim light of the street lamp. A key. She saw it too. "The keys!" she called out, her voice laced with hope. He dove for the object, snatching it up just as the nearest shadow lunged at him. The figure's form twisted, cloaked in an inky blackness that seemed to absorb the light. Heart racing, he pressed the key into her palm. "Get the car started." "Go." She nodded, quickening her pace toward the car, but as she turned, one of the cloaked figures dashed forward, blocking her path. "You think this is the end?" it hissed, the sound slithering through the air. "No!" he screamed, desperation clawing at him as he rushed to shield her. The mere sight of her in danger ignited a fire within him. "Stand back!" he shouted, but the figure scoffed, raising a hand that sparkled with dark energy. In that moment, he felt a surge of something greater than fear. It was the need to protect. He charged forward, tackling the shadowy form, throwing them off balance. "Go!" he yelled again as he wrestled with the figure. With a swift motion, he shoved the cloaked entity back into the crowd of shadows, causing a brief disruption that allowed her to leap into the car. "Start it! Hurry!" She fumbled with the keys, her hands shaking. Seconds felt like hours as the sinister laughter echoed around them, blending with the sounds of struggle. Just as he began to feel the weight of despair press down on him, the engine roared to life. She slammed the gear into drive. "Get in!" He lunged for the passenger side, yanking open the door, but the shadows surged toward him, desperate to keep him from escaping. "Now!" she screamed, her eyes wide as panic and determination clashed on her features. He jumped into the car, slamming the door shut behind him. "Go! Drive!" With the tires screeching, they lurched forward, bolting out of the parking lot. The shadows reached for the fading vehicle, but they were gone, swallowed by the night. Breathless, they barreled down the empty street. But his mind raced with questions. What had they unleashed? What did the rival really want? As they sped away, she glanced at him, eyes filled with a mix of fear and resolve. "We have to figure out what is going on, before it's too late." He nodded, but his heart sank at the thought of what might still be chasing them. In that moment of silence, a dark realization crashed over them. They had escaped this time, but the nightmare was far from over. What secrets lay waiting in the shadows, and what price would they have to pay to uncover the truth? The car sped through the empty streets, tires squealing. She gripped the steering wheel like it was her lifeline, knuckles white and tense. The shadows had retreated, but that didn't quiet the thunderstorm brewing in his chest. He glanced back, half expecting to see the sinister figures chasing them down the road. "Did you see their faces?" she asked, her voice shaking. "What were they?" He shook his head, trying to piece it all together, but his thoughts were a chaotic whirlwind. "I don't know. But we need to find somewhere safe. Somewhere, lit." She nodded, biting her lip as her eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. "Stay alert. If they could reach us like that, who knows what else they can do." They drove for what felt like hours, the night stretching endlessly ahead. Streetlights flickered above, illuminating the road but casting deep shadows along the sidewalks. The gnawing fear settled in his gut again, a reminder that their escape might only be temporary. "Where do we go?" she finally asked, her voice tight with anxiety. "We can't just keep driving forever." He closed his eyes, trying to think clearly. "We need answers. We need to find someone who knows, maybe someone from your old job." She inhaled sharply. "You mean Mr. Donovan?" He had connections to some strange stuff. "Exactly," he replied, urgency sharpening his words. "He might know something about these shadows, about the rivalry. If we can get to him he might help us." Her agreement hung heavy in the air. She turned toward the dimly lit town square, a flash of hope igniting in her chest. "It's not far from here. Let us go." They parked hastily in front of the old brick building, its architecture a stark contrast to the sleek lines of the car. The sign above swung slightly, creaking as the wind tugged at it. They both stepped out, eyes scanning for movement. "Quickly," he urged, glancing around. "Let us get inside." As they approached, an unnerving silence enveloped them. The faint hum of the city faded, replaced by an oppressive stillness. "You hear that?" she whispered. He didn't answer, his senses heightened. The shadows that had felt like a nightmare earlier were now a lurking reality, almost palpable in the air. They pushed through the door, entering the dimly lit room lined with dust-covered shelves and scattered files. "Mr. Donovan?" she called out, heart racing as echoes bounced off the walls. "Nothing." "Keep your voice down," he hissed, moving deeper into the office. It could suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the back room, breaking the uneasy silence. They froze, adrenaline spiking through their veins. "Did you hear that?" She was breathing heavily now, the tension coiling tighter. "Stay close," he whispered, his voice barely audible as he edged forward. Each step felt monumental, heavy with fear. They reached the door to the back room, the sound of scrambling settling down. "What is going on?" She clutched at his arm, barely able to keep still. "Only one way to find out," he breathed, pushing the door open just enough to peek inside. The sight before them sent chills down his spine. A figure, a man they both recognized, was frantically shoving items into a duffel bag, eyes wide and frantic. "Mr. Donovan?" he called out, but before he could utter another word, Donovan whirled around, his face pale and drawn. "What are you doing here?" he snapped, voice low but urgently fearful. "You need to get out now. They're coming, and they're closer than you think." They shared a wide-eyed glance, all their questions pooling in that moment, desperation rising anew. "Who's coming?" she gasped. Donovan's answer was cut short by the sudden crash of glass, the door bursting open behind them. Shadows flooded the room like a swarm of locusts, slithering across the floor toward them. Panic surged as the darkness lunged. "Close the door. Now!" he shouted, adrenaline bursting through him as he pushed her back, but it was too late. What awaited them beyond this moment? The answer loomed just out of reach as the shadows surged forward, eager to drag them back into the depths of the unknown. The shadows lunged toward them, a dark tide that seemed alive, swirling and twisting as if they had a mind of their own. He felt a raw panic grip his chest, and instinct kicked in. He shoved the door closed behind them, the sound of scraping wood drowning out the chaos trying to force its way into their sanctuary. "Donovan!" he shouted, trying to maintain some focus amidst the chaos. "What the hell is happening?" But Donovan was already moving, the duffel bag slung over his shoulder like a life raft amid stormy seas. "I can't explain. Just trust me. If they're here, we need to go." His voice was sharp, slicing through the heavy air. She grabbed his wrist. "No. Wait. We need answers." Her fear clashed with desperation. "Answers will get you killed," Donovan barked, nudging them towards a side door that led into a back alley. The crash of items hitting the floor sounded from behind them. They were running out of time. "I will explain later. Now move." The urgency in his voice left them no choice. The trio darted out into the murky night. The cool air hit them like a splash of water, but the shadows were relentless, creeping closer with every breath they took. Donovan led them through the alley, glancing back nervously. They ran without speaking, adrenaline propelling them forward. Every shadow seemed to stretch and reach, clawing at their heels. Around the corner, Donovan stopped abruptly in front of a rusted service door. He fumbled with the handle, and after a graceless shove, it creaked open. "Inside!" he ordered, urgency pulsing through each command. Once inside, they were enveloped by darkness. He squinted at the faint outlines of dusty furniture, his heart thumping loudly in his chest. "Where are we?" she whispered, her voice trembling as she felt her way to his side. "An old storage facility," Donovan replied, his face taut. "It's not much, but it'll buy us a few moments. We can discuss the rest, but we need to be quiet." The silence that followed was deafening, as if they were hiding from the world itself. The only sound was their breathing and the distant echo of footsteps outside on the street. A wave of uncertainty washed over him. What were they running from? Were those shadows even real? Or had fear manifested itself into something more sinister? Suddenly, a soft shuffling came from the door they had just entered. He turned, senses flaring. Donovan's face froze as he raised a finger to his lips, signifying silence. "They're close," he mouthed. He clenched his fists, pushing against the walls that felt close enough to crush him. "What are those things?" he managed, keeping his voice down. "Not things, people," Donovan whispered, his eyes darting around as if expecting an ambush. "People consumed by rage. They feed on fear, and they're hungry." Her eyes widened, and he couldn't help but glance at her, struggling to contain the terror swirling inside her. "But how? Why?" Donovan opened his mouth to answer, but a loud crash erupted from outside. Splintering wood and the sound of a heavy thud jolted them into tense silence. They all exchanged looks brimming with fear. "Time's up," Donovan breathed, his tone grave. "We need to get out of here, now." Before he could react, she took a deep breath, as if steeling herself. "Wait, what if we confront them? We need to understand who they are before we run. We can't keep fleeing." "You don't understand what you're asking," Donovan hissed, panic creeping into his voice. "This isn't a game. It's a fight for survival." The shadows, but were they shadows? Began creeping towards the door, dim outlines pressing through the gaps, pulsating, alive. Panic surged anew. Should they confront whatever it was out there or flee into the unknown? He could feel the weight of their decisions bearing down on him. A loud voice taunted them from the darkness, echoing fiercely in the confines of his mind. "Choose wisely." With their options dwindling, the time for choice was now. Would they run or face whatever terror awaited them? The air felt charged, thick with uncertainty as they stood on the precipice of a choice that could change everything. And then, a figure emerged from the shadows, its silhouette stark against the dim light. "Are you ready to learn the truth?" it asked, the voice deep and mocking, as dread seeped into the air surrounding them. As darkness swirled, they were left only with questions, and the gnawing fear of what revealing that truth might cost them. The figure stepped into the feeble light, revealing more details of its form. A tall, gaunt man, his haggard features twisted into a menacing grin. The dark circles under his eyes looked like bruises, reducing the hope of a peaceful interaction to nearly zero. Tension coiled in the air like a snake ready to strike. "Who are you?" Donovan demanded, stepping protectively in front of them. His bravado masked the fear evident in the tightness of his voice. The echoes of chaos outside faded for a moment, replaced by the thumping of their hearts. The man laughed softly, a sound that crawled under their skin. "I am a guide, and a harbinger of truth." He took a step closer, shadows clinging to him like a second skin. "I know why you are here, and I know what you fear. You want answers, don't you?" She swallowed hard, glancing at Donovan, trying to find reassurance in his rigid stance. "Answers to what?" she whispered, her voice a fragile thread in the thickening tension. "To the writhing horror outside your door. To the shadows that want you, want your fear." The man leaned forward, his intense gaze locked onto hers. "They are coming for you, but I can help." Donovan shifted, muscles tense, ready to strike if needed. "This is nonsense. We don't even know what you are." "What I am doesn't matter," the man shrugged dramatically, his smile fading slightly. "What matters is who you will become if you don't understand what you're fighting. This isn't merely survival. It's a test, a cleansing of sorts." "What do you mean by that?" he growled, a deep urge to crush the man's arrogance swelling inside him. Fear turned into frustration. Standing there felt like stepping on soft soil before a landslide. The stranger chuckled again, a sound both chilling and strangely comforting. "You will find out soon. First, you must face your fears, and you will." He stepped back toward the door as if ushering them into their own doom. "Or die trying." Suddenly, the door shuddered violently. They all flinched, adrenaline racing through their veins as the persistent shadow figures banged against it, their presence turning heavier, more tangible, growing in volume and intensity. I can't do this." She gasped, heart racing in a frantic rhythm. She was on the edge of breaking down, terror manifesting through trembling hands, but Donovan took her by the arm, forcing her to look up. "We face it. We end this. Whatever it takes." The man watched them, amusement glinting in his eyes at the unfolding drama. "How noble," he mused, voice laced with sarcasm. "But remember, the only way out is through. Risk your truth to discover the power within. We can't let them in," she cried, pressing against the door, but Donovan was already moving, bracing against it with all his strength. "Shut up and listen," he shouted, urgency painting his words. He turned to the man. "What do we do? What do we have to face? You must not only confront the shadows outside but also the shadows within. The fear isn't just theirs, it's yours too. Face it, and you may survive," he replied, the last word curled with darkness. In that moment, another loud crash sounded, the door splintered, threatening to give way. A gaping maw soon pressed against the threshold, ready to unleash whatever horrors lurked beyond. He felt the weight of dread hanging over them, suffocating any lingering hope. The shadows, their whispers grew louder, a cacophony of despair, each voice pulling at the threads of their sanity. "Now or never," Donovan shouted, the tremor in his voice evident, as they braced for the inevitable. With a deep breath, she squared her shoulders, preparing to confront his demons. But as they steeled themselves to face the shadows, a flicker of realization struck. The shadows were not simply threats, they were reflections of something far deeper, and just as their minds struggled to comprehend this new truth, the door flew open, and the shadows engulfed them, dragging them into the abyss. "What have we done?" she cried, panic slicing through her words. "I don't know," Donovan shouted back, as the darkness closed in. As the cold washed over them, a single thought clawed at his mind. Was this the end, or merely the beginning of uncovering the truth? Darkness swallowed their screams, leaving only silence, but what awaited them on the other side could alter everything. In the pitch-black void, a strange sense of weightlessness enveloped them. It was neither solid nor completely ephemeral, more like being suspended in murky water. She tried to move, but her limbs felt heavy, as though encased in lead. Panic gripped her chest, her breaths coming in shallow bursts. "Donovan!" she called out, her voice cracking. The silence mocked her, swallowing her words whole. Where were they? Had the shadows devoured them completely? "I'm here," came his voice, strained and echoing, although it felt distant. "Just hold on to something, anything." But there was nothing. Only emptiness filled with urgency and dread. She felt her heart race, the rhythmic pounding echoing in her eardrums, drowning everything else out. Then, a flicker. A pale light burst forth, illuminating a small clearing. They stood on the edge of what looked like a vast landscape, a twisted version of reality where shadows played games with the light. The ground was dark and cracked, like dried mud after a long drought, but it shimmered slightly, as if alive. "Where are we?" she asked cautiously, glancing around, trying to catch any sign of life. "What is this place?" "The in-between," Donovan murmured, stepping forward, his instincts guiding him. "It's a realm of fears and secrets." She felt a chill run down her spine. "And those shadows? They're reflections of what we fear the most." As the words left his mouth, the shadows began to shift and undulate at the corners of the clearing, whispering sweet nothings that chilled her blood. A soft, familiar laugh echoed from the darkness. It sent shivers down her spine. "Look who found their way back. Thought you could escape me so easily?" She turned sharply, recognizing the voice. "No, it can't be." Emerging from the shadows was the haunting figure of her past, a version of herself that had long been hidden. She looked just as she did years ago, flawless yet distorted, an echo with piercing eyes that shimmered with malice. "You've brought your little pet along. How quaint." "Get away from her," Donovan shouted fiercely, stepping between them. His courage flared like a match in the dark, but the shadowed reflection merely laughed, twisting her lips into a cruel smile. Protecting her, are you? But can you protect her from herself? The ground quaked, and shadows clawed at their feet, threatening to pull them back into the depths. This isn't real. She shouted to herself, clenching her fists. I'm not afraid. Oh, but you should be, the shadow sneered, inches away from Donovan. You can't deny what you fear. Look around, darling, this is who you used to be, who you could become again if you let the darkness win. Beads of sweat formed on her brow, her nails digging into her palms painfully. Shut up. She panted, desperate, anguished. Face it, or die fighting. The shadow warned, a twist of glee sparking in its hollow gaze. Heart racing, she was torn between the reflection of her old self and the reality of what she could become. Would Donovan help her stand firm, or would the creeping doubt drag her down? As shadows tugged at their consciousness, Donovan's resolve flickered. You're stronger than this. He gripped her shoulders, his voice a lifeline tethering her to reality. In that moment, something inside her ignited. Lasting through the shadows wasn't just about survival, it was about facing who she truly was, the good and the bad. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the chaos. Let us end this, she whispered, determination coursing through her veins. But whether she had the strength to conquer her shadow remained uncertain. The ground trembled beneath them, and a new wave of shadows slithered forth. Reality twisted, wrapping around them like a noose tightening. Could she truly escape herself, or was this just the beginning of a darker journey? As the shadows loomed closer, threatening to swallow her whole, it was clear, this battle was just starting. It was her last chance to confront her true self. What awaited her in this confrontation would mark the climax of her terrifying journey. But would she succeed, or would this be the end of everything she fought for? In the suffocating grip of the in-between, shadows clawed and whispered, eager to reclaim their hold. The ground beneath them quivered, as if sensing the weight of her decision. She gazed into the dark twin of herself, eyes swirling with unfulfilled dreams and unspoken fears. There was power in that reflection, power that felt both intoxicating and terrifying. You think I'll fall back into the shadows? She shouted defiantly. No. I've fought too hard to let you win. The shadow smiled, a grimace of victory. You think you have a choice? You allowed me to exist all this time. The same fears keeping you shackled to your past now fuel my strength. Donovan's grip tightened around her shoulders. Fight it. You know the truth. His voice was a reminder of warmth in the darkness, strength she had never acknowledged, and it pushed her to rise above the tormented reflection. With every ounce of will, she faced the shadows, forcing herself to remember the woman she had become, not who she used to be. The countless late nights of sacrifice, the pain of being dismissed, the moment she decided to reclaim her own story, all began flooding back. You're wrong. I am not my fears. I am my choices. The shadow hesitated for a brief second, as if struck by something it couldn't understand. Encouraged, she pressed forward. I've built a life even from the ashes of my past. I want to let you take that from me. The ground trembled again, this time resonating with the truth of her conviction. As if sensing a shift, the shadows around them surged forward, ready to drown her words. You can't deny me. The taunting voice echoed, but her heart beat louder than the dark. For a moment, she felt a flicker of doubt, a tempest of fear crashing against her resolve. What if the darkness was simply stronger? But the moment Donovan took her hand, a tidal wave of hope surged through her. It's time to break free together, he proclaimed firmly, a fire ignited in his eyes. In this darkness, we'll find our light. Their clasped hands pulsed with an energy that illuminated the shadowed realm. Sunflowers of light pushed through the cracks of their insecurities, illuminating the world around them. And the reflection before her began to tremble, losing shape as raw energy collided with the shadows. No! The shadow screamed, writhing in protest. You can't escape me. This ends now. she shouted, entwined with Donovan's strength. They turned to face the darkness together, the shadows hissing and recoiling as the light intensified. Reality twisted around them, but as beams shot forth, the darkness broke away, revealing the true nature of their fears. It wasn't power, it was vulnerability. As the light blazed and shadows shriveled, she felt an indescribable rush. Memories of her past became clearer, weaving into the fabric of her existence. She wasn't running from anything, but confronting every piece that made her who she was. And then, silence, the vast expanse of the in-between lit up like dawn breaking through. She stood tall, no longer hidden by the fear that had once consumed her. "Is it over?" Donovan dared to ask, uncertainty still dancing in his eyes. "I think," she paused, glancing around the new world formed from their collective strength, "I think we faced what we needed to." The towering figure of their dark reflections crumbled away, swept up in the wind borne from their resolve. Rebirth lingered in the air as gentle whispers of hope cascaded around them. With newfound courage, she looked at Donovan. "Let us go home." As they walked, stepping through the rift that had been opened, the weight of the shadows fell away, and reality embraced them. The sun shone overhead as they emerged to the warm glow of what felt like a second chance. Back in the parking lot, with the cracked pavement beneath their feet, their surroundings felt different, freed from the suffocating grip of the past. "I guess we'll need to figure out the rest," Donovan said, glancing at her with relief and something more, an unspoken promise. "Together, right?" She replied, spilling warmth in her gaze. "Together," he affirmed. The shadows of their past dissolving into the distance, replaced by the light of hope beckoning them forward. In that moment, they understood, shadows linger, but facing them creates a path to the light. Their scars had formed a bridge, and the future shimmered with possibilities. As they stepped away from the airport, the air was filled with the sounds of life, laughter echoing like music, the past remnants now a guide, not a prison. "Let us build something better," she said, determination lacing her voice. They walked side by side, no longer merely surviving, but alive and hopeful, ready to shape their world anew. Now, this journey has reached a truly transformative conclusion. If you've loved this story, you need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive tales that unfold with every click. Smash the like button to help our community grow and thrive. Your support is what fuels this journey. You must flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories on this wild ride. It helps us connect with you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Your actions make a difference, and together we create something extraordinary.